plan to ban sex education for children under 9.
Here's a summary of the article.
Schools in England will be banned from teaching sex education to children under 9, in new government guidance expected to be published on Thursday. The statutory guidance on relationships, sex and health education, which schools must follow by law, is currently under review. At secondary school, relationships, sex and health education is mandatory, and covers content on a wider range of key topics. In some cases, parents have a right to remove their child from some sex education lessons, but not from relationships education. Lucy Emerson, chief executive of the Sex Education Forum, said, "If topics were to be restricted, it will leave children even more dependent on getting answers about topics from pornography, coercive control and STIs from online sources." Dolly Padalia, whose charity School of Sexuality Education delivers RSHE workshops within schools, said, "Sex and gender education, when delivered thoughtfully and sensitively, equips children with the tools to understand and respect themselves and others." Under current guidance, it is down to primary schools to decide whether they need to cover any aspect of sex education to meet the needs of their pupils.
This post received a score of 2,800, with an upvote ratio of 90%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
What about good touch, bad touch? IMHO sex education doesn't literally means how to do sex. It's important to explain anatomically correct how sex is conducted. Some parents don't do this at home.
Not to kids under 9. Seems like it should mainly be teaching them that private parts are private, and if someone touches theirs they should find a teacher or a trusted adult. Anything more seems unnecessary till 11 plus.
Having unambiguous words to talk about bodies is really important for being able to tell a trusted adult that something bad happened. And 9 is the beginning of the normal range for getting your first period. So knowing about that before 9 is rather important. Random large amounts of blood coming out of you kinda makes it seem like you are dying.
Isn't sex education for children under 9 like, if your uncle touches you in a private area, tell your teacher? They want to stop that?
In my school they learn a little bit about pregnancy too. It makes sense because a 9-year-olds generally will have met a pregnant woman and someone will have told them that means she's having a baby. Sex ed demystifies this a little bit. I'm a primary teacher in Ireland, by the way.
I started my period at 10. I have friends who started earlier. If girls aren't getting sex ed at home, I imagine this could be quite traumatic.
That's a very good point too.
About which country are we talking here?
It's hard to tell these days.
Reddit changed link behavior. I somehow missed the BBC link. Obviously it is about England.
Yep. Our government's last-ditch attempt to survive an election year they know they can't win. Pander to the right-wing outrage crowd. Push fear and division after over a decade of own goals.
Don't forget that they are also trying to rig the election via voter suppression.
They'll need to suppress about 1,000 times harder if they really want a ghost of a chance.
They're trying to make it as difficult as possible for younger people to vote. I think they're too little too late though, because it seems that they've pissed off the millennial and Gen Z base enough for us to actually bother to vote this time.
I'll believe it when I see it. Young people can never be asked to vote, but old folks always turn up.
We're old now.
I didn't pretend sex is only between a man and a woman. I openly and naturally explained that everyone has sex, sometimes with the opposite sex and sometimes with the same sex. Some people are shocked when I say I told my young son about homosexual sex, but the one thing I wish I had known as a child was that a man can have sex with a man, and so an adult man doing sexual things with a young boy is still sex. But it is wrong and should never happen. As for the right time to teach kids about sex education, I think if you're asking that question, you are the one making it more complicated and awkward than it needs to be. Sex isn't anything to be embarrassed or scared to talk about.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.